Good morning, everybody, and thank you so much for joining us. We're a little late getting underway because even more of you have come than we expected. I'm trying to decide how to interpret that. But seriously, thank you so much for coming and joining us today. This is, as always, our annual PTRM meeting, and it's mandated, but the fact that it's mandated is in many ways irrelevant. What really matters is that we need to come and talk about these issues and continue to refine our processes and clarify what it is we want in our documents and what we want for our faculty and what we want for our students. As part of the faculty evaluation process, from our current ART document, you can see that it is to enhance student learning essentially, and also to help you as faculty members do your job as effectively as you can. I would note evaluation role and evaluation structure in that statement there. Those are such important things for us to be thinking about today. So what are we trying to achieve? I want to achieve three things because I think there are three really significant and important things that we need to improve on if we are going to be fair, equitable, clear, concise in the way in which we undertake the evaluative process. The first is that we must have clear, transparent criteria and procedures. The second, and in some ways for me even more important, we must have candid evaluations. Candid evaluations. And the third is we must have support for faculty throughout the faculty lifespan. We cannot have pre-tenure as a liminal state. We cannot have pre-full professor as a liminal state. We need you all fully engaged, fully as part of the community, with clear standards, clear criteria that you will know how to reach, because we have mentored you and helped you get to those fully accepted and widely accepted standards. So let me give you my annual report on our success rates this year. So looking at those three categories: tenure with promotion, other promotions, and the 5-year reviews. So for those requesting tenure with promotion, 13 of 15 were successful, 87%, almost 9 out of 10, and that's exactly the same figure as last year, 87%, which I hope means we're being consistent, but I also hope it doesn't mean that that 10th person has not had the mentoring and the help and the guidance that they require, or we have not had clear criteria, or we have not offered candid evaluations on the way for those people to know whether they're on track or not. Amongst the other promotions, you can read those for yourselves. 1 out of 2 assistant professors who were tenured were elevated to the associate level. And I want to thank the colleagues of that successful candidate who worked with them and mentored them, enabled them to become part of scholarly activity to make that shift from a tenured assistant to a tenured associate professor. That's the kind of thing that we need to work on. And then for fulls, 19 out of 24. And in most cases, the 5 unsuccessful efforts were because of a lack of sustained scholarly activity. Sustained scholarly activity that was disseminated and validated. On the 5-year review front, 44 of 52, no trouble. 8, we requested plans for the future. Mostly, I think, because our message that not only did we want you to tell us what you'd done over the last 5 years, but we also wanted you to tell us what you thought you'd be doing for the next 5 years. Not everybody seemed to have got that message. That's, I think, our problem, and something that we need to work on in those criteria. How do we let it be known that, yes, we want you to tell us what you've done, but we also want you to be prospective and help us think about where you're going to be taking the institution in the future, where you want to go in the future, and therefore how we can help you get there. Maggie, am I supposed to talk about these? Yes. Oh, no? Right. So, no. Why don't you come on up, would you? I'm so glad my script is complete here today. I'm kidding. I do want to just introduce members. Yes, is that what I'm supposed to do? Got it. All right. He's very slow today. You'll have to forgive him. His wife is away, and life just never runs quite as smoothly when she's not home. Could the members of the UPTRM committee please just stand and be recognized? Let us thank you for all your work. Mary, Terry, Jay, thank you. As you also are aware, I hope, we have an art policy review committee that's just starting work, trying to take a careful look at this document that we all carry around with us. It is being looked at the system level, and it's being looked at across campuses in the USM. And it's a really, really important review that we have not conducted for a while. Our views of scholarship, interdisciplinary work, the kinds of scholarly endeavors, the kind of teaching that we're doing has changed in the last 7, 8, 10 years from when we wrote that document last. We need to be clear about how we're going to evaluate those new forms of scholarship and those new modes of teaching. And it's important that we do that clearly and now. So there are members of that art document review committee with us. Shanna Gass is here somewhere. I saw Shanna. Yes? Thank you, Shanna. I saw Mary Lashley, of course, because she's going to have to come and talk to you. I saw Laurie Mullen over there somewhere. There she is. Laurie, thank you for being here. Have I missed anybody else? Yep. How could I? Stand up, will you? Who else? Oh, Gilda as well. So Susan Flaherty here from business, and Gilda from education, and some of the time in our office, which has been great. Thank you all for being here. Thank you all for your work on that committee. We have formed some subgroups looking at particular areas of interest to those individuals. And today we're going to look at the roundtable topics. Some of the questions that we've already started to think about, we'd like you to generate a lot more of those as we go through this. And I'm supposed to ask Mary to come up and say something nice about me, and then some charming things about all of you. Mary, thank you so much for being here. Thanks for all for being here. We'll get to work in about 5 minutes.
I've been asked to share a little bit about the UPTRM committee activities and accomplishments this year. And as most of you know, the UPTRM committee is a standing committee of the University Senate. There are 7 faculty members on the committee. 1 member is elected from each college. We also have a Senate representative and a dean and provost representative. And we meet the second Friday of each month from September to May. And for those of you that may not know, our functions include reviewing and approving all of the college and department PTRM policy documents university-wide. We review and approve all the department student and peer evaluation forms. We administer the system of faculty evaluation, and we review faculty appeals that are due to procedural error. And I really wanted to take this opportunity first to recognize Dr. Doug Ross, who served as past chair of the committee for a number of years, because he laid the foundation for us to have a very successful year. He's the one that remade the UPTRM website so that it's now a one-stop shop for all PTRM documents. So if you want to look at any department or college document across the university that's PTRM related, you can find it right there. He also streamlined the P&T document review process, and he instituted many positive changes that has really enabled our committee to work more efficiently. And he was also very thoughtful about succession planning, mentoring others into leadership roles and ensuring a seamless transition this year. So I'm really deeply grateful to Doug for his service. This year, our committee membership reflects the diversity of ideas and minds that are represented in our academy, and this diversity really helps to shape and frame our discussions. Each person on the committee serves their disciplines and their colleges very well, and I just wanted to give you an opportunity to get to know a little bit more about them. First, we have Dr. Kimberly Katz, and she is our University Senate representative. And as a professor of history, Kimberly has really challenged us to view policy from a much broader perspective. She has a keen sense of the historical and political and social context that undergirds our work and its impact on policy development. She brings clarity and focus to our discussions, and she ensures that that we examine our decisions in light of equity and fairness issues. So through her contributions, we are able to view our issues from a much broader lens. Next is Jay Knudsen, Dr. Jay Knudsen from the Department of Dance. Jay is incredibly articulate and insightful in expressing her ideas and moving us forward in our thinking. When she expresses herself, it is a little like a well-choreographed dance. She has a way of orchestrating the movement of ideas, bringing order to our sometimes disjointed and seemingly random thoughts, and shaping our dance of ideas into a beautiful and graceful form. We're deeply grateful to Jay for her contribution. Dr. Tamara Waraabe is next from the Department of Economics. Tamara is so smart, and she has such good judgment. She has that rare and beautiful combination of intelligence, common sense, and practical wisdom. She gets to the point, and she brings clarity where there's confusion. Dr. Shimon Shokek is from the Department of Philosophy and Religious Studies, and like a master philosopher, Shimon loves a good argument. He knows how to argue. He offers a rational, vigorous exchange of ideas. He does not shy away from the strenuous examination of the underlying beliefs and values that frame our policies, and he helps us to view issues within the context of epistemological and ontological ways of knowing and being. It's wonderful to interact with such a great philosophical mind. And then we have Dr. Jay Nelson, Department of Biology, and as a great scientist, he is uniquely gifted in balancing skepticism with receptivity and openness. He's adaptive and inquisitive. He seeks solutions. He's passionate and laser sharp. He has a focused scientific mind. He's insightful, analytical. He cuts to the chase. He reveals core issues, and he has the all-important fun factor that makes our meetings so enjoyable. So appreciative that he's with us. Dr. Morna McNulty is from elementary education. One of the Hebrew words for teach is to aim or shoot like an arrow, to point like a finger, or to flow like water. Morna moves our minds along a path. She prepares us for the journey. She propels us into the future as any great educator would. And she does it passionately and with incredible energy. Like a great teacher, she's very adaptable and and she's also an incredible team player. She's always stepping up and standing in the gap. So indebted to her for all that she does. And then finally, there's Dr. Terry Cooney, who is the Dean and Provost representative. And as you know, Terry is a scholar and a gentleman. And he's also our, for lack of a better word, our high priest of the Holy Writ. He helps us to interpret and apply the TU art to our lives. And he knows it like the back of his hand. He can quote it chapter and verse. So these are the people that I'm privileged to work with, and I can tell you that they are serving you very well. If you wonder whether or not you should join a university committee, and I know I'm preaching to the choir here because the reason you're here is you're already engaged, highly engaged in the academy. But if you ever wonder why, why would I join another committee? I can tell you that for me, it is an incredibly intellectually stimulating experience. It's kind of like getting a liberal arts education all over again. Last year we had Dr. Cooney and we had Dr. Vatz on the committee, and honestly, I felt like I needed to bring a dictionary to each meeting just so I could understand what they were saying. So I have learned so much from them. So a good deal of time this year has been spent on PTRM document reviews. We've reviewed 2 colleges, College of Education and College of Liberal Arts, and the 21 department documents that go along with them. Next year, College of Business and Fisher College of Science and Math are up for review. And the documents have been in very good shape. So what I'm about to say is really more kind of a minor tweaking. But one of the things we noticed is if you can include a title page and a table of contents with your document, and on the title page include approval dates, so we know when your department document was approved by your department, when it was approved by the college, that would be very helpful to us. We'd also like to recommend a cross-check of pagination between the document and the checklist. The UPTRM committee has a checklist where you put the page numbers, where we can find things in your document, and sometimes those page numbers don't align with what's really in the narrative. So if somebody could just give that a good look before it's submitted, that would be so helpful. Also recommend incorporating dates from the PTRM calendar into the narrative of your document. So in addition to having a calendar at the end of your document, if you can weave that into the narrative, that just helps to bring clarity and avoid confusion. We do ask that the deans upload a single document to the SharePoint site that includes the cover page, the table of contents, and then an edited, clean PTRM document, so no track changes embedded. And the last thing we recommend is just bringing the language of the art into the department document rather than referring faculty to find the information in the TU art. So rather than just saying see TU art, to the extent that you can incorporate that into the narrative, that would be great. In addition to reviewing the PTRM documents and addressing procedural appeals, we also are providing input to the Art Review Committee based on revision of the art, and we're also serving as facilitators at the workshop today. So we're all around today. Please feel free to share any ideas or concerns you may have related to PTRM issues with us. And thank you for giving us the privilege of serving you in this capacity. Thank you.
Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. Okay. We'll get into the really fun part, the part where you're going to get to work in groups and actually provide some solutions to your pet peeves about the art document. Okay, so this should be a working group and an opportunity for us to share potential solutions. On each of your tables, you have a plexiglass thing that looks like this. On one side, it has 5 questions for you to address during the next hour. Okay? Thank you. Just seeing if you were reading. Right, there's 6 questions, okay? We also know if you have a very industrious group and you get through all of these, feel free to look at any part of the art where you would like to provide suggestions for language changes and actually provide some written text that we can then forward to the Art Document Revision Committee. That would be helpful. So here are your questions. To help with that, you have some handouts. The green, I think, addresses maybe question 3. Did I remember that right? Okay. Let me see. No, it was number 4. So question 4 has been added by our provost. So question 4, merit, but it's about merit. These are the principles that Dr. Chandler has when he came up with his process to change the merit process. So what he would like, he's giving you the opportunity to provide other suggestions, other methods for meeting his principles. Okay, so the green handout helps you with question 4 if you would like to address that question. Okay, the blue handout refers to the faculty development portion of the art. This is the entire text that gives us guidance about our mentoring process and the faculty development regarding promotion and tenure. So we're asking, because we've heard from multiple sources that we need to make this more robust, how would you change and modify this portion of the art so that we can meet faculty needs in terms of their knowledge of the promotion and tenure process? So those additional handouts that you have. We also sent the table leader electronic versions of these. So your table leader can, if they have their device with them, can send them to anyone on the table who would rather look or take notes electronically. The other handout you have on your table is a white handout which gives you the names of both of the committees, the UPTRM committee as well as the Art Revision Committee. We also have a website that we've I think shared with everyone. If you haven't received an email, let me know. But there's a portion of the Provost website that's devoted to the Art Revision Committee. So you'll be able to follow and track our progress. So, and you can also communicate with any of these members of this committee with any suggestions that you have about the art revision. Say a week from now, something comes to mind, please continue to provide input to us. So you have about an hour to work on the 6 questions, or if you want to branch off into other areas regarding the art document, please feel free. There's 2 copies of the art document on each table for you to be able to review, specifically Appendix 3. Okay, we're going to get started with the feedback session. Bethany and Hillary, who are here and who helped us put this together. Can we give them a round of applause first? They're going to circulate with the mic. So what we're going to do is on a first come, first raise your hand basis, we're going to ask tables to report out. And I saw Beth Clifford was the first person right there.
So these aren't going to be in order, but we started with the question about the Provost Merit General Principles. And he's occupied now, so I can say this, we do not like them. We are concerned that the way merit is redefined there, it means that if you're just doing your job, there's no category for that, because non-meritorious is that you're not doing your job. Also, given the small amount of money that usually differentiates merit and merit plus, it seems punitive. And basically, we thought since merit raises are often the only raises available, we thought that once there were consistent and substantive COLA raises, then we would go back and reconsider the idea of changing the merits. So, we did hear me, okay. Hi.
Hi. I love you too.
It's been a rough couple weeks, so I figured I would speak because I wouldn't mind being fired this week. So, okay. So with number one about the committee, the university-wide committee, we thought an advantage was transparency. But we worried about another layer of bureaucracy. We worried about how it might affect the timing of decisions. So we weren't quite sure that was the way to go. And we also thought that it might intrude on department and college decisions. In terms of number three, we just said no, so that's short. And number six, we just thought that rather than how the training should be structured, we just thought there should be some training because at a lot of colleges there isn't right now, but that it should be probably at the college level of training PTR chairs and department chairs. And then last, in terms of faculty mentoring, we got some good ideas about how different departments do it, but we also thought that having a Center for Teaching Excellence would help in those cases where the mentoring is that the person needs assistance with teaching better.
Thank you, Ben.
You're welcome.
I can sneaking in here.
Carol, can I just ask you, because people who couldn't be here today asked us to videotape this?
Yeah.
If you could just sort of look right into the camera.
Hello. I'm super nervous here. Hi, Mark. Okay, so a couple of things. We talked about question number one first. It could be a good idea to have for transparency, like you mentioned before. One caveat was that people are maybe a little bit nervous. How would we evaluate scholarship in areas where we don't have any experience? Art, for example, in my case, I don't know if I would be comfortable doing that. An alternative could be that we have people from different departments joining other departments to see what they're doing and learning about how they evaluate things. Let me see, what else do we have? We can have subcommittees. We talked about this before, yes. And rather than having, the question is, rather than having another committee, would it be better to really, starting at the department level, let the department really learn to do their job? That you don't bring people forward if you really know they shouldn't be brought forward. So rather than have a new layer coming in, just make sure that the department and the college doing their job, and then we don't need these committees. That's an idea. And we all have seen there are cases where we all have heard at least there are cases where people have been moved along, which they should maybe not have been moved along for whatever reasons. Okay, merit. Right, we know that. So, yes, I think this was a big mistake that you started doing that. No, in your first year, right?
You want to fail as a program. First thing you do is to medal with merit in your first year.
Right. So he recognized it.
Right.
Yes. So, yes, just like the first tip was it is complicated. And well, I think just to make sure, if you would have a choice, you would get rid of merit. Right. So I think it's important. So it's merit as a system is not something the provost can just say yes or no. We have to live with it, and it's not perfect. It's ugly. What we discussed about is the percentage. I don't really know where this 30% coming from. And if you, yes, if you number 31 and you are as good as number 30, there should be some flexibility. And there's no syllabus on campus where we say only 30% of our students could get an A. Right? It might be that there are 31 or 50, but it might be that only one gets it. So,
How many get an A+? That's right.
So it's a difficult issue, and we're working on that, and I'm hoping that willing to.
That's why I'm asking.
Yes. Right. So I think there should be. What else do we have? So maybe there's a goal, but there should be also sort of a flexibility in terms of ±5% if you want to have that. Okay. All right. Thank you.
Thank you, Harold.
Hi, I'm happy to report on behalf of our highly functional committee, and we'll try to keep it quick. We worked on the first 4 items, and so the first one about a university review committee, we thought a peer review by faculty at a university level is helpful to provide consistency, greater faculty input beyond the provost. We think this review committee can serve in an advisory capacity for the provost, and greater input by senior faculty members we think is advisable. We also went as far as to say perhaps the January conference in the future should consider the ideas of shared governance and academic freedom as topics for that January conference. Moving to item number 2, the Boyer model. We believe that colleges have varying beliefs about the applicability of this model. The value and utility is being debated. Is there a better dynamic model that is more representative of the current Towson? A Boyer model is strong, with various levels of scholarship and service included. Can we reinterpret or replace this model? Or perhaps we can have optional models that we can select from. So those were all points we discussed. I'll go to item number 4. I'll skip our discussion about item number 3 just to save some time, knowing that we're trying to move through a lot of groups. Alternative suggestions to implement the Provost's merit principles. Obviously, this is a controversial issue in many departments. We do believe that peer review process is important feedback. Consider providing colleges and departments with greater discretion on how to handle the process. Do we need to redefine the percentages of faculty getting Merit Plus? Can we find a way to consistently recognize people who are exceeding expectations? And those are our key items in our quick summary. I'm happy to turn it over to another table. Thank you.
Thank you, David.
I don't know how this works. So we had a good discussion with our awesome leader who kept us on track, and what you are, and what it came down to, I'll start with the easy and then get to the more complicated. Number 3, our answer also was just no. It doesn't make sense because there are different responsibilities and different goals for those positions, and so to us it didn't seem like a good idea. In terms of merit, also a fairly easy answer. Can I just say no? We all agreed with the first and the second. Sorry, biscuit. With the first and second points about meritorious performance, but given the fact that merit seems to be functioning as COLA now, as Beth said, that the legislature is giving money for merit, but not COLA. The 30%, wherever you are, seems like, I just want to make sure you heard what I was putting out there. So that's where we are on merit. And so then as far as 1, 2, 5, and 6 go, we felt that questions 1 and 2 really come down to 5 and 6. In other words, that what seems important is process, is training, is establishing clear goals. In terms of the Boyer model, establishing what really is at stake there, and maybe stopping, ceasing using Boyer model as a kind of metonym for all of the different specific things that we have in mind that we really need to clarify. And likewise, the university committee seemed to us like a bad idea because it doesn't really address what the issues are, which is that we need better training and better clarity at the departmental and the college levels. So that was kind of right, huh? And chairs, department chairs, and chairs of those committees. Yeah, I think that's what we had. Is that good? Did I leave anything out? Okay. Thank you.
We had a lively discussion on number 1. I'm not going to say we agreed necessarily, but we had a lot of discussion. So different points that were raised. Number 1, it does put to rest the question, this is regarding the university level review. It puts to rest the question about different standards and transparency. But on the other hand, we're concerned about the amount of workload it would take for this committee to do a significant review and really read what would end up being many, many different dossiers, and at the same time being able to make some recommendation about them. Another concern was just a fundamental concern that this is not the appropriate place to apply the standards, that the appropriate place to apply the standards would be at the college level where the kinds of work that is done by faculty is better understood. And concern, therefore, that it might just become a rubber stamp. In terms of number 2, on the Boyer model, the way we would talk about somehow clarifying is to recognize that the Boyer model already clarifies in the sense of saying that scholarship of teaching doesn't mean teaching, it means scholarship of teaching. It means that you still have to publish, you still have to disseminate, you still have to do the things that we do with all the rest of our research. There's some concerns about applying the Boyer model would cause trouble with accreditation, especially in colleges where they actually look at what kind of journals are published and what kinds of things are done. We really ask for better clarification all the way from the provost down as to what the weights should be in terms of applying different kinds of weight to the process for different types of scholarship. In terms of number 3, no. In terms of number 4, we didn't get into as much the discussion of the various things on the handout. It's just the issues of related to merit. And one of the concerns we have with the 30% is the ability to, or perhaps a proposal, the ability to maybe average the 30% over some period of time instead of in 1 year. So you can have more than 30% 1 year and less than 30% the next year if necessary, because there's different levels of accomplishments of standards over different periods of time. That's it. We didn't do the others.
Thanks, Jim.
Okay, looking at question 1 and trying to repeat not what everyone else has said, the highlights were that we could endorse, the benefits of having this committee would be that it endorses what individual colleges decide, and it also could review and make sure that any review put forward was equitable and the decision that was made reasonable. The disadvantages, however, are time, and that it's the decisions and the people looking at the portfolios are a step further away from the department, so you have less expertise in rating the quality of someone's work. Also, it becomes harder and harder to get success in terms of moving forward. It's just one more hurdle to clear. Number 2, highlights for this discussion was to have the provost employ a handful of terms that discuss a wide variety and diversity of scholarship. Use terminology that includes scholarship shown in various media, particularly for creative disciplines that go beyond traditional journal publishing. Also includes scholarship of application, and acknowledge scholarship of application in teaching, where scholarship is actually implemented in a classroom, especially in clinical areas. In terms of number 3, it makes sense, some people felt to put all of these positions together. The documentation for lecturer is not consistent in one place, policies are not abundantly clear, and they ask for greater clarity in the art document that shows the rights of lecturers and clinical faculty. That brought us to another suggestion that everyone nodded vigorously, to have an index to the art document for quick reference, so that when you're looking for something very specific, the index would take you there. I know you can use functions in PDF to find it, but it would be really nice to have the document indexed. For number 4, I think many people said eliminate merit. Research shows that it destroys morale within a department, it creates ill will, and it puts peer against peer. We felt strongly that take that merit money, take the merit pool or any money that comes from Annapolis, and look at salary compression, and look at COLAs, and use that money in a different way within the department, rather than pit one faculty member against another. Number 5, the feeling was it would be a good idea to have a mentoring process, but it's hard to structure because it's hard to assign a mentor to someone. The process is organic and people coming together and choosing to work as a team. And then number 6, ideas here were that PTRM chairs need to have more training when they assume the role, have some type of mandatory training for the committee and the chairs, and department chairs that is handled by the dean, and that it would be nice to have a resource for PTRMs in each department that they can use to resolve questions, something that has deadlines laid out, that has a full schedule for submission of tasks, submission of letters, and when other pieces of information have to be forwarded on to other departments. Thank you.
Our group had spent a fair amount of time on number 1. Some of our ideas were that there's sort of a nice pattern where you have a nice symmetry, where you have a university that would level committee that would then kind of go with the provost, just like at the college level, you have the college with the dean and the department with the chair. So that symmetry was nice. However, let's see, advantages, they would add some, kind of give you a chance to review procedures. It would be a good idea to have a system for, I don't know, another level of kind of protection from inconsistencies, voting disagreements at the college or department level. Some question was, is it just repeating another level review? Is it doing anything unique? And then I guess, another question was, is this going to apply to new faculty? Or does this get phased in as they gradually move in? Or do people, is this going to kind of be the same rules for everybody all at the same time? So that's some issues that had to be looked at. I guess we had also talked about, let's see, we didn't really have too much agreement on number 2. For number 3, we had all, that didn't make sense, so we kind of went over that quickly. For number 4, I guess there was the concept. One idea had been to try to align have the principle that the merit should be aligned with the rest of the 10-year and 5-year review process, just so that ideas of equality between departments aren't really taken into consideration, but it's just supposed to be an annual review of, did somebody do well or did they not meet expectations? And so if you use those principles, then it might have some value. Otherwise, it really has kind of been the state legislature's way of replacing COLA in some way, from my perspective, but not everybody in the group, I guess. Anyway.
I think we have time for maybe 1 or 2 more tables.
Thanks. Oh, I'm sorry.
Hi, Jerry Jerome, Department of Kinesiology. We had a fantastic discussion back here. With respect to question number 1, the benefit of a university level committee, that would provide opportunity for some of our faculty who are seeking university level service. The disadvantage is that it has increased service needs. At the university level, we thought that having a committee would be helpful to have a group of individuals looking at binders at that level. But one of the disadvantages is, even in our own discussion, what the process looks like is not necessarily clear. So are we adding another moving piece, and there would be some challenges on increasing clarity of their exact role in the overall process. We skip down to point number 3, whether it makes sense to combine documents, and we had some departments who found it advantageous for them to be combined, and other departments that clearly found it advantageous to keep them separate. With respect to alternative suggestions regarding the Provost principles for awarding merit, we had a heated discussion about how to find a baseline across departments, colleges, across the university, although no clear suggestions on an alternative process for that. And the last point, we thought, agreeing with the earlier group, that it's essential to have some learning across. Even if we don't have a university level committee, even if we don't have the merit implemented in that fashion, there would be advantages of learning best practice, what's working in some departments and colleges, and some level of training going on. But the need would be even higher if there were those university level initiatives.
Okay, so we discussed the first question. The advantages that we saw were the symmetry between levels, and so that it wouldn't all rely on the provost. But there was also an idea that we didn't think it would add a lot more information than the college committee does, given that it gets harder as you get more removed from the actual discipline. It felt to people in my committee like this was a response to an idea that departments weren't really doing their jobs, and if that was the case, then it should be the college that should police that, rather than adding another layer of review for that. There was a suggestion that maybe external reviewers could also solve that problem, but I think that was maybe a minority opinion at our table. We talked about Number 4, with the merit, the 30% felt arbitrary to people at our table as well. The table thought that it was the teaching that was the hardest to evaluate to differentiate people, because we all pride ourselves on being great teachers, and it was hard to say who was the really, really greatest teacher. A lot of departments have come up with specific lists of activities that differentiate between someone who's meritorious or not, and we thought maybe it would be a good idea to have those more standardized. And it was also a strong suggestion that if student evaluations are used for that, then students should be forced to fill out the evaluations. And then we talked about the number 6 with the training. There are some colleges that are doing PTRM training, which we thought was a good idea. And there was also a suggestion that maybe a forum like this could have more time to answer specific questions for training, rather than it be another one or add to this with people getting specific questions answered.
Just one brief thing that came up in our discussion that was a little different was that we talked about workload and the challenge of having sustained research with workload, and it was brought up that in the art document workload isn't specifically addressed, so just to add that, or perhaps consider adding that to the art document.
So if you, again, over the next week or so, come up with a brilliant idea or another response that you haven't heard to the questions, please feel free to send them to me, either to my direct email, mrights@towson.edu, or the Provost Dropbox. So we'll continue to keep track of the suggestions and forward those to the Art Document Revision Committee. We have gone electronic with 2 small parts of the process. You'll get an electronic evaluation of today's workshop, so please fill that out. And this year, you're going to get your certificate, which we're required to provide you because of the documentation in the art. You're going to get it by email, so you're going to get an e-certificate. Okay, so I think that's the rest of the business part. So now Dr. Chandler will wrap us up.
Well, first of all, really stimulating conversations at each of your tables, and thank you so much for being here and contributing so fully to these discussions about these questions. I am not surprised, mostly, about what I've heard, which is actually good, I think. It suggests that I perhaps have been listening to some degree as I've wandered around campus over the last little while. Let me make a couple of observations about number 1 and number 4. One of the things that you have noted is that the further the reviewers are from their own area of expertise, the more difficult it becomes. I concur. But the further you are from the individual characteristics and personalities of those who you are reviewing, in many ways, the better. You judge the file, not the person. And I would like you to think about that as one of the potential strengths of having a university-wide committee. You're less likely to know the people, you're more likely then actually to evaluate the work. On merit, I hope you heard me say that I'm really not in favor of merit at all. I don't like it. But we're stuck with it. It's law. We don't have a choice until the legislature changes that. And therefore, for me, I feel obligated to encourage us to treat it as merit, not as COLA, and do it as it was intended to be done, but try and find ways of doing it that avoid what I recognize and that many of you have pointed out and have told me personally are unintended consequences of the principles, the implementation of those 3 principles that I have stood behind as being my rationale for thinking about merit as I do. One of those unintended consequences is that we pit individual against individual. That is thoroughly unhealthy and not something that I want to continue. The second is that there is no way, while we're rewarding individuals as individuals, for rewarding collectives, whether that's departments or units within departments that have done terrific work in a particular year and have really made a huge difference in your department or in your college. And certainly there is no way of fostering cross-departmental excellence when we are encouraged, pushed almost, to deal with this on an individual basis. I think that I would like to find ways to reward groups of individuals, departments, for doing great work, not just individuals for their efforts, because we are a collective, we are a community, and the way in which merit is currently done fragments that community. That seems to me to be unhealthy and unproductive. So if you can help me think about ways of using merit to promote the strength of our community, the collective efforts of faculty, I would really appreciate it. Please remember where I started on this, which was that in my first year there were at least 2 cases of individuals who for the previous 5 years had been granted Merit Plus who were denied tenure. Now, the fact that that leaves us open to a lawsuit is beside the point. The point is that what kind of messages are we sending to our junior colleagues when we tell them that you're doing work at a level over and above that expected of your position, and then the next year we turn around and say to them, you're not working at the level expected of your position. This is unconscionable. That's where I began. I think I've moved. I think you've encouraged me to move. Some of you have almost forced me to move, Harold. And I'm happy to move. But I want us to remember where we came from and why I felt it necessary to start down this road. Believe me, it's something that any other provost would tell you was madness. To get in and mess with people's pocketbooks on your first year in the job. But I just felt that I had to address it because we were not doing any of our junior faculty members any favors by dealing with merit as we were. I think we've made a lot of progress. I'd now like to revisit it, and you've given me a good opportunity to do that. I really thank you for that. It's been a great morning. I think we've made great progress. I hope the Art Policy Review Committee have gleaned some things that will be helpful to them. I hope you'll continue to gestate some of these ideas and thoughts that you've had and feed them back to the Provost Office, to Maggie, to me, or to members of the committee who are in your units, so that we can work really hard to make this document as good as we want it to be. And things like training, yes, we need to work harder at. I've always found training a somewhat dirty word in an educational environment where I expect people to be able to think for themselves. But in fact, there are things that we don't know how to do, and that requires training, and that's our obligation from the Provost's Office, along with deans and chairs. So we will work on those things, and I thank you for bringing those things to our attention. Now, back to work, people. Thank you very much for being here.